Okay, with all these controversies swirling around electronic voting machines yet again after that Maharashtra verdict, it's time for a very special roundtable. I'm joined by three former distinguished chief election commissioners of the country. On the panel, Naveen Chawla, O.P. Rawat, and Dr. S.Y. Qureshi, all former chief election commissioners. We also hope to be joined by Madhav Deshpande, former CEO, Tulip Software. He'll give us the technology perspective. I'm going question by question to answer all the queries swirling around EVMs. My first big question, can EVMs be hacked as some are suggesting? Naveen Chawla, why don't you take that question? Can EVMs be hacked in your view?
The EVMs cannot be hacked in my view. And I have made my position completely clear in my book, Every Vote Counts, where I have devoted a whole chapter which calls itself the EVM, a controversy that refuses to die. And I know the time is limited, so I will mention just three reasons why I think it cannot be hacked, if you give me that permission. The first is that the EVM has stood so many judicial tests in different high courts, in the Supreme Court, and in every one of them, the loser or the losing state that went to the High Court or the Supreme Court came away having only received accolades for the EVM. The Karnataka High Court once called it the wonder of the world, and so on and so forth, several high courts. So one is, broadly, that every judicial verdict has pronounced the EVM to be safe. And remember, these are judges of the High Court and Supreme Court who have gone into great detail before they have come out with their judgments, which are available to be read. The second, which the press doesn't take note of, and which I thought I'd mention straight away, that in our country, as apart from other countries that use machines of one kind or another, we are under an administrative bureaucratic structure. We don't have volunteers coming in. So we will have the district magistrate and IAS officer assisted by IPS and other officers. And the result is that all these officers, their duties are calibrated according to the Constitution. They are under rules of governance, statutory rules of governance. And there would be, I don't think there has been a single case that I remember reading about or in my time where anyone would have gone out of the way to be able to go into a warehouse under their control and try and manipulate an EVM. So remember, we are under strict administrative controls. All our people, all our officers from the center or the state are governed by statutory rules and governed also by the punitive rules of government. I don't see any digression. But I'd like the press to bring this forward because it's a very important point. And the third is that after I did the 2009 election, there were naysayers, of course, and leading them was my friend, Mr. Subramaniam Swamy. And after we put 200 machines on the floor of the Election Commission, and we said, please consider each of these machines to be a polling booth. We put cameras because you're in the High Court. Now, please tamper with the machine and show us on camera, which we'll put before the Delhi High Court. So now nobody could quite tamper with that. They all wanted the engineering, they wanted the manufacturers to give them their various codes, which are not possible. Even we in the Election Commission never got them. So that resulted finally in Dr. Swamy asking for a paper trail. I told him it couldn't be done immediately, but we would start. So during my remaining 2 years, we had 3 attempts with the paper trail, but I warned him that it won't take less than 10 years as we keep developing newer and newer models. And then you're happy to, we all know, and there are hardly any complaints that now the paper trail is there in the VVPAT, which no other country has. So these, in summary, are my 3 submissions.
Okay. I'm going to come to the VVPAT in a moment and the verified paper audit trail, but Mr. Rawat, do you agree, concur fully with what Naveen Chawla said, that EVMs, remember, are standalone machines in this country. They are not connected to any wider network or internet. Do you believe, therefore, they cannot be hacked?
Yes, they cannot be hacked, and I have also said this time and again. And during my time, we threw EVM challenge when there was a campaign against EVM, and no political party came forward for almost a whole week to meet the challenge. If anybody had any belief that it can be hacked, they could have come with their engineers and tried their luck.
Okay. Can I also get in Dr. Qureshi? Dr. Qureshi, do you believe that EVMs cannot be hacked? Remember, Elon Musk in the United States that says that even EVMs can be hacked, but India retorts by saying we have standalone machines that are not connected to any wider portal or network. Do you believe, therefore, EVMs cannot be hacked in this country unless you get access to the strong room?
Yes, absolutely. I have been saying till this morning that the EVMs of India cannot be hacked. And when Elon Musk tweeted that they can be hacked, I immediately tweeted back that he must be talking of US EVMs. He cannot talk about Indian EVMs, about which we we can support. That there is no question that they can be hacked, because there are technological checks, there are administrative controls, and it is next to impossible to tamper with them.
Okay. Let's turn, so on hacking, there's a consensus that all three of our chief election commissioners are insistent that EVMs cannot be hacked. Unless, of course, someone gets access to the strong room, in which case, of course, anything is possible. But so far, there has been no video that's come in ever of people entering a strong room, and thereby that argument also doesn't work. The next one, what explains the surge in turnout after 5 p.m.? And I want to throw some numbers at you. In Maharashtra, for example, there was an 8% increase in the state of, in other states during the Lok Sabha, for example, there was even an increase 10 to 12% at times, but Maharashtra was 8%. Is that enough, though, Naveen Chawla, to say that why is there a surge in voting? Now, the Maharashtra CEO has pointed out that even in 2019, there was a 7% increase after 5 p.m. Polling closes at 6 p.m. So it's the average voter turnout per hour. And yet there are people who are asking questions to explain the surge. Do you think that that raises doubts that we should be getting these numbers in real time rather than at 11:30 in the night, or indeed a few hours before the polling ends the next day when suddenly numbers go up?
Are you asking me?
Yes, ma'am.
Hello?
Yes, Mr. Chawla. Do you believe? Yes, Mr. Chawla, it's to you. Do you believe that this surge in voter turnout after 5 p.m. needs a better explanation?
No, I think the explanation really lies in the fact that it's very well known in our country, which is really a huge subcontinent where it's raining somewhere and very dry somewhere and very hot somewhere, that anyone who has entered the queue at 5 is entitled to vote. Now, in some parts of the country, if somebody has come in for whatever reason at 5 to 5, and that queue goes on till 7 o'clock or 8 o'clock, then that's the time it takes. So why should one question this in, say, Maharashtra, and not question this, say, in Jharkhand, or for that matter, in Delhi or anywhere else? So it's perfectly, but nobody has pointed out that anyone who has voted has joined the queue after 5, because that would then be a serious allegation, and no district magistrate or returning officer would allow that to happen. So, and then, I mean, we're talking about 1 billion people, of which 60% are voting. And so if the counting is a little slow, why are we suspicious? In some countries, the counting goes on for 3 months. We're talking about a few more hours.
Okay,
I mean, the whole argument is invalid.
I'll come to the counting in a moment. I'm just talking about voting. At the moment, remember, just to explain, in Maharashtra, turnout figures rose from 58.22% at 5 p.m. to 65.02 at 11:30 p.m. that night. And then the turnout percentage rose to 66.05 hours before the counting ended. Now, all of this should have been in real time. Dr. Qureshi, does the Election Commission need to keep updating, therefore, constantly, rather than rather than suddenly updating a few hours before voting, and thereby creating the impression that could something have gone wrong? These 76 lakh votes that were added post 6 p.m. In your view, the fact that there were approximately 10 lakh voters again added only a few hours before counting, is that normal, or should there be constant real-time updates?
Yes, actually there is real-time update, and Chief Election Commissioner before the election in a press conference or in some TV appearance had mentioned that every 2 hours the real-time figures are disclosed. And at the end of the day, there is a Form 17 which sums up the events of the day and including the total votes polled. And only after signing Form 17C and getting signatures of the polling agents present there and giving them the copy, he can go home. So this is real-time data, and it has to be finalized and distributed on the same day. Therefore, the question of any change later on is surprising. Now, what surprises me that the whole nation is talking about the discrepancy of figures, and only people who are keeping quiet are the Election Commission. They know the fact. They have more fact that we know. They should explain to the nation what explains this. And finally, the fact that many people come after 5 o'clock. If it was the heat of the summer, one can understand people come in the evening. Today is the best weather of the year around the country. And therefore, there is no question of people waiting for 5 p.m. and staying till 11 p.m. These are which need to be explained. And who can better than the Election Commission itself? Silence is not their option.
But the fact is that if I look at average voter turnout, remember 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. was voting. So even if it has increased by 7-8%, it's the average. I want to make it very clear. That's the average increase per hour. The only question that I have, which troubles me, is that as to why is it that what is 65.2% at 11:30 p.m. when you've tabulated all those who've joined at the last moment into the polling booths, that's post 5 p.m. to 6 p.m., how does it again then go up, Mr. Rawat, to 66.05 the next day just before counting begins? Now, that may not seem to be big in terms of percentages, but that's another 10 lakh voters added. Surely then, by 11:30 p.m. the same night where voting is concluded, I should know the final turnout. Why do I need another revision the next day? Or is that again normal?
It is again normal. Because you should know the ground reality. Ground reality is that many polling stations are inaccessible. So 2-hourly reporting from those polling stations never come because they are not having any network. There you cannot go on vehicle, you have to walk on foot, and the zonal officers, sector magistrates cannot go there. And that is why there is a time lag between reporting from 100% polling stations during the polling day. But after that, once polling closes, then second process of scrutiny by the observer next day, when presiding officer's diary, Form 17C, and all those data are cross-checked. And when certain mistakes are found, these mistakes are reconciled in front of the representative of all the political parties and candidates by the observer, and then totaling is again checked, and that goes up because certain errors, these errors found, they are corrected. So that way, next day changes happen. And even after that, when I was Chief Election Commissioner, I found in one state, Tripura, that even after general observers scrutiny and checking, there were some presiding officer's diary which had something written which was illegible. And therefore, after 2 or 3 days, there was some additions in the turnout. So all these things keep on happening because of our human resource development for these kind of jobs who go on poll duty, in millions. To be precise, I think 1.4 million polling stations are there, and nearly 70 lakh polling personnel are there. And these people cannot be expected to perform at 100% accuracy all the time, even under the stressful time of polling during the poll day. Yeah.
Okay, that's an important point that you're making, just the size of the process. I just for a moment want to bring in Madhav Deshpande because he's the CEO of Tulips and he's been looking very closely at EVMs. Before you joined us, Mr. Deshpande, all three former chief election commissioners were unanimous. EVMs cannot be hacked. You want to quickly respond on that before I move on?
No, I mean, I have always been saying that EVMs cannot be hacked because they are not connected. And when I say that, when I agree with the Election Commission, I am relying solely on their declaration that the VVPAT does not have any electronic component that can receive or send signal. As far as the earlier two components, the ballot unit and the control unit are concerned, we have the details available because they were filed as a patent. However, no details of VVPAT have been available and they have not been made available in spite of requests. So here the only recourse to me is to believe what Election Commission says. Now, if what they are saying is untrue, then my belief that there is no electronic component that can receive or send signal would be incorrect. And if that is incorrect, then my belief that it cannot be hacked will also be incorrect. But at the present moment, I believe Election Commission is not lying about this. Election Commission has told us the truth that there is no electronic component that can receive or send signals, and therefore it cannot be hacked.
But are you making a distinction here, Mr. Deshpande, between VVPATs and the electronic voting machine itself?
Yes. So the problem with the design, I do believe that when the design in 2013, when the Supreme Court asked introduction of VVPAT, I think there was a problem in making this new design when control unit was connected to the VVPAT. And there was a back and forth allowed between VVPAT and control unit because VVPAT is the strongest computational machine or the processor that you have, and it is strong enough to do enough calculations and do things that are different. So what right design should have been was ballot unit connects simultaneously with the control unit on one side and the VVPAT on the other side. It could have been easily done, and that would have eliminated all the doubts that we today have because of the introduction of VVPAT. And it would have still addressed the guidance that the Supreme Court had given.
Very interesting. I want to come to my next question and the next query. Can EVMs have 99% battery charge on counting day? Dr. Qureshi, you have heard this, the Congress party claiming both in Haryana and some of them now in Maharashtra that some of these EVMs seem to be charged on counting day 99%, and those are the constituencies they lost. They claim if a EVM was working right through the day, from counting day onwards, how could it on counting charge day show a 99% battery? Is that problematic to you or not?
Well, again, this is something which is best answered by the Election Commission because they know the fact. But common sense, if a machine has been used the whole day, how will it be 99% the next morning? If the battery has not been used, 1,000 votes have been cast. So there is one possibility that at 4:30 or 5 o'clock, the battery was changed, and next morning, therefore, it will show 99%, and that is understandable. But these are all matters of fact. What happened about this 99%? This mystery has to be answered by the appropriate institution, which is the Election Commission. Again, their silence is not helping matters.
Okay, because that silence over this particular issue of they've dismissed it outright, saying there's nothing, but they could do much more with providing greater detailing on this specific query, as you said, that has been raised in this context about 99% charge. You want to step into that for a moment, Naveen Chawla, as well? Do you see any basis to those who say, how come some counting machines seem to be 99% battery charged even later in the day?
Well, I do agree with Dr. Qureshi that every single doubt that was ever raised in 2009 election, we did our very best to answer. And the premise was that talk to all the opposition members, and don't talk to the people in the government, they're always satisfied. Talk to the opposition, talk to the independents, find out what their doubts are and address them. Every doubt must be addressed, and it should be done throughout the process. With that confidence having been instilled in voters, candidates and people at large, we hardly had any. But I would say that there still might be a credible explanation here that the Election Commission should give. And every single person who may have lost by a very small amount of votes needs an answer. And I'm not sure that the Election Commission has been as forthcoming as with their answers as they might have been.
Let me turn to the next question, and this is one I think, can voter lists be manipulated? And that is an important question. Are they all genuine or manipulated? And I want to ask you this, Mr. Rawat, by giving some hard details. The fact is that in Maharashtra itself, there was a huge increase in the number of voters between July 24 and November 24. Nearly 47 lakh voters were increased. And in 50 assembly constituencies, there was an average increase in the voter list of 50,000 voters. The ruling regime and its allies secured victory in 47 of them. Is there a worry that voter lists, either names are being deleted or added? I spoke to Nitin Gadkari, the union minister, on camera. He expressed concerns that voters' names had been deleted in Nagpur during Lok Sabha. Is this a real concern that specific voters could find their names deleted or added?
There have always been these concerns. There have always been these concerns, and the political parties, they resort to this kind of rigmarole. Many of them file applications on behalf of other voters that their name should be deleted. And, you know, in the process, it is very difficult to find out whether it is a sort of lie or it is being done on behalf of the voter. And these attempts are thwarted by Election Commission and their returning officers by going to the ground reality and checking it. Still, there may be some problems where one or two names.
Because I'm giving you a specific.
Not found.
You know, it's not one or two names. With due regard, and Dr. Qureshi, you might want to step in. I gave you the numbers. There are constituencies where the average number of voters rose by about 50,000. Now, EC will say this is their greater effort in enrolling voters, but there will be question marks. Also, because along with that, there have been reports of voter suppression, as we saw in parts of UP. The police were accused of not letting certain people vote. Is that something which needs to be looked at far more closely than just EVMs? That could be the real problem, the manner in which voters' names are added or deleted.
Yes. You know, when the opposition keeps blaming the EVM, I tell them that they're barking up a wrong tree. The real issues and problem could be in voter list. Election can be won and lost before the election by manipulation of the voter list or mistakes in the voter list. But to be fair to the Election Commission has spent lakhs of rupees advertising in multiple languages. Okay, please check your rolls, and nobody checks the rolls. And when you go to the poll day and your name is missing, then you start crying. But you were warned, you were asked to check the roll so that corrective action could be taken. But voter roll is perhaps one weakness in the whole system, and it is always fluid. We need to focus more, pay more attention to voter list than any other issue.
Okay. That's an important point. Let me turn, therefore, from there to you, Mr. Deshpande, to my next question. There's a belief, should EC increase VVPAT tallying? At the moment, randomly chosen, about 5% of these verified paper trails are used to ensure that there is no mismatch between polling and counting. Should it be 100%? Is that one way that maybe when I get my, when I press the button for EVM, Along with that, the paper trail can either be put into the ballot box next, and both are counted 100%, at least for one election, so that all these doubts are raised, that maybe in the next general election there should be 100% VVPAT. Mr. Deshpande, you're on mute.
Sorry. Before I answer that question, I have a question for the respected former chief election commissioners. And I heard them saying, giving a lot of explanations about the increase in the percentage count of the voters. I believe, and I do not know the exact numbers, but these respected people should know, I do not believe that in any given constituency there are 8 or 9% of polling booths which are out of reach more than 10 kilometers. In India, we have a digital India, we have 5G, we have connectivity, people working from home, and we have all these software companies operating. I believe if you already have an Encore app that connects to the web server. Even if you are in a very distant location where there is no connectivity, within an hour of closing the ballot on that day, it should be made absolutely mandatory that the actual vote count, not the percentage. I think percentage is obfuscation of data, and it's a violation of basic data science principles. I have written about it, but it should be mandatory that the count of votes should be uploaded and published, because thereafter only minor changes would be possible. I do not, if even today, after doing all this, thousands of crores of expense, we are still giving the same explanations that we were giving when we had ballot papers, I think we have lost all those 1,000 crores. Now, coming to your question, personally, I do believe that even if one vote mismatch or one vote increase or decrease happens in the EVM, it's a failure of not just the EVM machine, but the entire system that we have built around EVM. And for this, it is not the stakeholders are not just the political parties. I think the biggest stakeholders are the Indian people. And the Election Commission has to be responsible to the Indian people and not to the political parties. So every vote has to count. Now, if we make this count of VVPAT and EVM 100%, at least one doubt, there are multiple doubts. I have been saying this since September 23. The electronic pairing between control unit, VVPAT and ballot unit has never happened. I do not know why. We use electronic pairing every day in a Bluetooth speaker from our phone. It's a very ubiquitous technology available. Even if you don't use Bluetooth, you can do it by wire. It is very well established all over the globe. Why it is not done? Because if you do that for every polling booth, with all the machines, with a central polling booth identification, then it will be impossible to replace control unit or VVPAT or both the things together. And that will eliminate a lot of doubt. As long as you do not eliminate the doubts, there will be allegations.
Can I very quickly bring Naveen Chawla in on that? Naveen Chawla ji, the opposition is saying have 100% VVPAT counting. Now, most statisticians would say 5% is enough, randomly done. Do you believe, just to clear all doubts, we should have 100% VVPAT counting along with EVMs?
Not at all. In that case, you can go back to the ballot paper system. And once you go there, there's no coming back easily. So be wary in suggesting that, Mr. Deshpande. I would suggest that even if we are at 7% or 8%.
I have never advocated ballot paper. I have always said in all my interviews that going back to ballot paper is like going back to bullock cart age. But given the situation today, where election commission, all my RTIs
the only point I was making, the only point.
No, is it better if we have 100%? No, but if we have a 100% VVPAT trail? No, Mr. Chawla, 1 minute. If we go to 100%, then how, at least you will ensure. At the moment, in the Lok Sabha, there were 536 constituencies where there was a mismatch between votes polled and counted. Now, there may be small amounts, but the moment you have a VVPAT, you have a backup. Is that a good idea or not? So that you can clear all doubts once and for all.
You see, the VVPAT by itself created the paper trail that the naysayers wanted in 2009. And although it took 10 years, I think it's worked very well in the totality. Look at our millions of booths and EVMs and the VVPATs to match and engineers on hand to deal with a glitch. I mean, we are not talking about some tiny country of 5 million people. And so for every EVM, you have on standby an engineer to replace, to remedy. These are huge things that the Election Commission goes into, but unfortunately, the Election Commission must make available to the public in every single language what it really does behind the scenes, which is enormous. Yes, Rajdeep, I'm not saying that there won't be glitches. I am not saying that people will not complain. But I still tend to feel that those who win take out victory processions, and those who lose then blame the Election Commission, which has been, or the machine, and the machine at least, or the VVPAT, is blameless in my view.
Okay, you're saying blameless. All I will say is if we can ask these questions and they can be answered so conclusively by several of the former election commissioners and experts, why isn't the same process followed by the present election commission? Why don't they get the political parties to raise all their queries before and after the polls, get the media to do the same and answer every question one by one? If they did that, maybe a strong measure of confidence would be reposed in the election commission. But when you're non-transparent, when you don't answer these questions, that's when doubts and conspiracy theories flourish, especially in this age of social media and YouTube, lots of unwarranted, unsubstantiated comments being made. But if the election commission was a little bit more transparent and less opaque, maybe we wouldn't have to even worry about what really is going on behind the scenes. We would then hope, as our chief election commissioners have pointed out on this roundtable, that do not mistrust the EVMs. I want to leave it there. As I said, these are debates that are important to ensure we remain a strong democracy. I thank all my chief election commissioners and my tech expert, Mr. Deshpande, for joining us here on this very special roundtable. Thank you so much.